I'm very passionate about, Asian mental health and building this community. But like, what do you suggest that our community in general can do more of to further our cause?
Further our cause in what sense?
Further the subtle Asian mental health cause. Like, how do we further the cause of subtle Asian mental health?
Well, I think first we need to identify what the cause is, right? Like, what is our cause? Our cause. I don't necessarily know if the community as a whole sees it as a cause, as opposed to like
a space,
just a space for them to
vent and talk about their issues and find support
and get some mental health support, right?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know if people see it as like. I don't know if people think that there's like a vision or a mission to it.
Right.
But
well, maybe they should know. Like behind the scenes, we're doing so much work and we're talking so like grandly about where we want to see this going in the future. And there's like 40 of us behind the scenes. Like we have some visions.
Yeah, and I think first of all, I think we should talk about what the cause is. Like, what is our cause, right?
Right.
So, what is our goal as like subtle Asian mental health, or as Asian mental health collectives, right?
Yeah.
Our goal is obviously or our cause, I guess you could say, is to make mental health something that is more openly talked about, more commonplace. Like mental health being like not mental health issues or like mental illness, but just like the idea of like thinking about mental health as a component of
well-being, health and life.
Yeah. I think that's ultimately our goal. I think for us, like we talk a lot about like destigmatizing mental health. I think that's a very large part of what our goal is. But I think at the end of the day, it's just making it commonplace to talk about mental health in Asian communities with a little bit of Asian context.
Right, yeah. And I definitely see that cultural shift happening. Even over the past year, we've seen personal, like individual and systemic change. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really promising.
I definitely agree that there's been a lot of change. So I guess the question is, how do we further our cause, right?
Yeah.
And I think we just keep doing what we're doing, Mm-hmm. Keep making it okay to talk about what's wrong.
Yeah.
I think that if I wanted to like take a guess, well, I think there's probably research on this, but I'm pretty sure there's a cultural association of Confucian Stoicism that has a lot to do with why we don't talk about feelings and emotions as Asians, right? I know that sounds very East Asian centric, but I think that those general values are Pan-Asian, and the idea of being a stoic and seemingly peaceful person is very much highly regarded. I would say that that's where a lot of that comes from, just saving face in a sense, just making it look like you have it together.
Yeah.
That's all part of, it's like Asian people invented Instagram before Instagram was a thing, it's all about what does my life look like to other people, not what's actually going on. Everything that's actually going on, we can kind of hide. And I think that that's probably, if I were to make it a guess about where our issues kind of originated from, that probably has something to do with it. So with regard to like furthering our cause, it would just be able to change that, right? I'm not saying that we should throw away our Asian values.
Just like reject Confucianism.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of great things that came from Confucianism, but I think part of it is there's something good about being able to be tranquil and be this like embodiment of peace. I would like to see it be a whole person thing, like a congruent tranquility that is both
Yes.
inside and out, right? And I think that's the heart of what Confucius was. Okay, maybe I'm wrong, but part of me, at least based on what I know about Confucianism, I think that that would probably be closer to what he would have been advocating for. You know,
Yeah.
like the inner harmony
Inner harmony.
versus like
Outer just
just looking like
perfection.
looking like you have the
looking-
harmony.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, like looking externally like you have it all together is not very harmonious or tranquil. So it kind of defeats the whole essence of what you're going for. Really, like if you really wanted to be tranquil and at peace with yourself, then you should do the work to understand yourself and
Well, I mean, some people don't know how to do that, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess part of the other ways that we would kind of further our cause would be to put those resources out there to make people familiar with what it looks like to be emotionally congruent and to be more verbally congruent, to say what we mean and to not be passive aggressive.
Yeah.
Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. Well, there's this negative connotation with it, right? But
Well,
I think
is passive aggression ever really a good thing?
I don't want to go so far as to say it's a bad thing. I think that there are certain circumstances in which it's a form of communication. And
It's a form of communication, but I always think that open, honest, active, proactive, like communication trumps passive aggression in all.
But that also depends on cultural context, right?
Yes.
Which one speaks more strongly in what kind of society?
Right.
Right? Because in some societies, like in
a lot of East Asian societies,
or at least from like what I've experienced from my own extended family, right?
Right.
The passive aggression is a more powerful tool of communication than the direct whatever. Right? Because it hits at a certain like a core like understanding.
Right.
Versus just like a superficial like hey just do it, you know?
Yeah.
Versus like what I really want is this. I mean, for us, because we grew up westernized, it's easier to just have open communication because that's what we're used to, right? That's what our societies tell us. But I know for my parents, with their parents, it is more effective to be passive aggressive at times than to try to be direct. Because when you try to be direct, then you violate cultural norms.
Right.
And that puts you in a worse position. Like now you're talking back, right? Now you're like being like defiant or like disrespectful, right? Versus being indirect is more acceptable.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think it depends. Because of our kind of perspective, I think that we see it in a very negative way. But you know, sometimes you kind of have to know how to play the game. And
that's true.
I think that sometimes it is a more effective form of communication.